enabling AI in Raspberry Pi, installing and practicing PyTorch. Welcome to Insight Builder channel, artificial intelligence enthusiasts, Python experts, and my dear friends. In this video, we are going to see how to install PyTorch inside Raspberry Pi 3 Plus model, 4 GB RAM version. Before we go into that process, I am going to, as usual, discuss the why. Why we want to install PyTorch and related libraries in Raspberry Pi. Simple, the curiosity to see if we can install Torch and whether we can actually work uh, by building the neural net models and load neural net models inside the RPI RAM. And then once we are able to successfully build and load the neural net models, think what we can do next with the models that is already loaded into the RPI. So what will happen once you load it? So think about it. RPI, the Raspberry Pi, is a very small board that can be mounted anywhere. I mean, it's a very small computer, in fact, which can do a lot of stuff. So you can go to the rpi.com and you can see that there is lots of new models has been also released. RPI 5 has been released and it has got better uh, power. RPI 5 has better power and also it has got bigger RAM, around 8 GB of RAM, and future is going to be much bigger RAM and much faster processors, right? So yes, slowly and steadily, artificial intelligence models are going to enter into small computers like RPI, that is Raspberry Pi. You must have already heard that Google has already launched something called as Coral AI. It's a small board similar to Raspberry Pi with a TPU processor. The idea of these things, idea of getting the high power processors on small board that can be mounted anywhere with lesser power, is to spread the artificial intelligence across the entire ecosystem, across the entire environment and ecosystem. So first and foremost, we have to understand how these things can be possible. If you are curious like me, then you will already know that in order to run Torch, in order to install and load these models, it takes considerable amount of RAM, and also processing these models by training them, etc., is also going to take considerable amount of power. Can RPI handle these things? So this is what something that I wanted to find out. So what I'm going to do is, in this particular series of videos that I'm making, I'll be showing you how to install Torch on a RPI. I'll be showing the entire process, and then I'll be continuing to practice Torch related exercises, PyTorch related exercises from the basics, like the PyTorch methods, then the creating the optimizers, creating the models, and training the models on Raspberry Pi itself, and move on from there. So as you progress in these videos, you will also understand how the things are getting done from the scratch. That is also one of the main reason which I have not mentioned here, but that is also one of the objective that I am planning. Now the why part has been completed. Let us now think about the how part. In order to work on this how part, you need to get a Raspberry Pi 3 plus 4 GB RAM Raspberry Pi. Higher versions of Raspberry Pi is fine, but the lower versions you might actually face some challenges. So ensure that you have at least 3 plus Raspberry Pi. Next, you need to get hold of 64-bit Pi OS. This is very, very important. If you go into the operating system images, and usually you will be getting these operating system images, and you will not get this uh, list of OSs. So if you go to Raspberry Pi OS, and if you click on that, initially you will not get the 64-bit option. So you have to click on see all download option, and after that only you will get the 64-bit option, and you have to download the 64-bit option only. That is how you will be able to install PyTorch. If you are not downloading this 64-bit, then it will not work. So keep this in mind. So once you download the 64-bit, it will take a couple of minutes. it's going to be some 300 to 400 MB. It is already gzip, so you don't need to worry about it. Next, you need to download Raspberry Pi Imager. This is one of the applications which help you to image etch the Raspberry Pi OS onto the microchip. The SD card that you have, it will copy the operating system files onto that, but it will copy it along with the boot files also. So you can download it for any of your operating systems, Mac OS, Ubuntu, or Windows. Once you do that, what we can do is we can start the installation process. If you go to the, let me show it. So this will be the Raspberry Pi installer. Initially, you will not have any of these things. So you have to click on this and you should say no filtering. Raspberry Pi device, just don't filter it. Next, you have to choose the OS, go for use custom, and select the image that you have. So your image will have ARM64 like this. So this is very important. Now click OK, and then it will ask for the storage. So I'm going to select the storage that I have got. In this, if all these steps are completed, next what you need to do is it will ask you to edit the settings. So this is where things gets interesting. So once you go to edit settings, it will ask you to set the various things. So this is one of the important points of RPI Imager. Rest of the images like Etcher, Balena Etcher, or I think there was one more disk writing applications also. Those don't have this settings. So you can actually set the host name, you can set the username password immediately in this location that you can use for logging into your RPI after installing the operating system. So this is very, very important. You actually don't need to connect the RPI, that is Raspberry Pi, to a display for getting a connection. So I will show you how it is done. You have to set the username, password, give the username that you want and the password that you want, and configure the wireless LAN that you have. So if you are going to use your phone hotspot, or if you are having your own home wireless router, give the SSID, give the password of that, and then connect to it. You don't need to change any of these things if you don't want to. Next, come to the service. So this is one of the important steps. So you have to enable SSH and you have to allow public key authentication only. Once you do this, what will happen is you don't need to run SSH. Okay. If you are in Windows, it might actually raise an issue. I have already installed SSH for Windows. You can check that out also. So take a look in Google for installing SSH for Windows. Install it before you start this process, right? This is very, very important. I will make this note in the description below. You should install SSH for Windows before you start this process of installing. Once you're done that, then it will ask you to play the sound and eject the media, etc. This step is very, very important. So once you've done this step, once you say save, and it will ask you, so would you like to apply the custom settings? And once you say yes, after that the installation will start proceeding. Once the installation has been completed, as of now I'm going to say no, because I don't want to actually install it. I just want to show how the installation works. Once the installation is completed, what will happen is the entire disk will be ready for you to plug it into the RPI slot. So in your Raspberry Pi, there will be a slot in which you can mount the SD card. So let me go back here and let me go to the documentation and let me show you how it works. So if you go to the getting started, and you can actually look at, just a minute, this is what I was talking about. So you have to, once you have copied the operating system files into the micro SD card, then you have to take this particular card and put it in the slot. So this is what I was talking about, and you need to power it up. So those parts of powering up the RPA, etc., I'm not going to discuss, but ensure that your RPA is properly cooled. So that is very, very important. Ensure this particular chip that you are seeing here must have a heatsink. If the heatsink is not there, then when you are going to load the models, there can be overheating of this particular chip. So to avoid it, do mount a small heatsink. The heatsink will cost less than 10 to 15 rupees. You can get it in Amazon as a kit. and you can mount it, and also you will have a case also. So ensure that you have done that. If you are really concerned about the thermals, then ensure that you mount a complete metal kit around this, metal cover around this, so that it will easily cool. Anyway, so these are the peripherals you need to attach. Here we actually don't need the mouse and the keyboard, because we are going to connect through the SSH, right? You don't need the mouse and keyboard. All you need is this power. Now the power is done, and your SSH activity is also ready. Then what we are going to do next is we are going to go into the command prompt. So let us go to the command prompt. I am going to bring the command prompt here. Right. So I am already inside the SSH, already inside the Raspberry Pi terminal. So how did I do this? This is my folder in Windows. This is the folder in Windows. I'm using dir. You'll see that I have the Raspberry Pi Bullseye ARM64 image here along with Ubuntu image. This is something that I already have, and I am going to do an SSH into the Raspberry Pi. So SSH, the username is Kamal, and the IP address, of this particular Raspberry Pi that is connected is, either I can use IP address or I can directly use the username, use the system name or the host name. So if I say Kamal at Torchit, it will actually be able to find out the IP address of it, and it will be able to directly SSH me into the terminal. It's that simple. Initially, when we used to install PiOS, what will happen is you have to manually enter into the operating system through the GUI, then create the SSH, install SSH, and then you have to then connect to the SSH from the external system. But all of these things has been right now eradicated by using this settings that we saw. So once you do the settings, using this edit settings, all of these steps have been removed. So it becomes really, really easy. Let us go back to this step. So getting an Raspberry Pi 3 Plus, getting hold of 64-bit PiOS, installing it, and SSH to RPI. This is all done in matter of less than 10 minutes. I'm telling you, if you have the proper, in order to get the PiOS installed onto the memory chip, that is the SD card, you will need one adapter. So if you have that, ensure that you buy that adapter also. It's an USB adapter that you will get it. Once you have that, and you have the RPA imager, you have the OS, getting the OS onto the SD card becomes very, very simple. And then once you have SSH to the RPA, believe me, the rest of the things is going to be really, really easy. It takes, after you have got the SSH into the RPA, it takes less than 30 minutes to complete installation of Torch, as well as sentence transformers, and Hugging Face related libraries. So all these things takes less than 30 minutes in 2 Mbps internet connection. That simple it is. So there are a couple of things you have to keep in mind before you even go ahead and install Torch. I would suggest that you install Rust. So this is one of the steps that I want you guys to do, because this Rust is required when you are going to install transformers and sentence transformers. This is required this is one of the dependencies of the sentence transformers library. After you have installed Rust, okay, sorry about that. Before installing Rust, ensure that you have updated the RPI OS. So ensure that you run the sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade, and then do the reboot. This is very, very important. After you do the reboot, install Rust, and then install Python 3 pip, and then upgrade pip also. After that, install NeoVim. Vim is important. If you are not comfortable with Vim, then you can install Emacs, or you can install any other GUI based text editor, but have one text editor installed. It's very important. And then you have to just run this pip install Torch. It's as simple as that. It will pull all the necessary libraries like NumPy, scikit-learn, etc., and it will complete the installation. Torch will take around 15 minutes, and installing these libraries, transformers, sentence transformers, and Hugging Face, etc., will take you approximately 15 to 20 minutes. let us now go into the terminal, and let me show the commands. So let me zoom in a bit. Python version. So this particular RPA, I've already installed everything. So I'm just going to run through the all the code and commands that we have to execute. So sudo apt install update, sudo apt update, sorry, sudo apt update -y. So that will ensure that it will not ask you any questions when the update is being done, and you have to do a sudo apt upgrade and y. So once you execute this, it will upgrade the system. I'm not going to execute that. Next, I'm going to say sudo apt install python 3 pip. So this will install the pip, that is the Python installer for various libraries. It will install the setup tools. It will install the various supporting libraries for library installation. That is Python library installation like Torch, Sentence Transformer, etc. Right. Next, we need to install the Rust. We have to install the Rust programming language. So for that, you have to use this particular link. So this link, we can get it from the Rust website itself. So if you go to the Rust website, if you say install Rust, and yeah, that's it. So once you say install Rust, it will be at the top of the page. So you have to use this particular link. Go into the link, and you can. So here itself, you can see the link is available, and you can just copy this, and you can start executing in the shell. Okay. After Rust is installed, after you have checked the Python version, after you install the pip, then you have to do a pip installation of Torch. So you don't need to install Torch Vision, you don't need to install Torch Audio or any of the supporting libraries. This is very, very important. If you're going to install Torch Vision, Torch Audio, you will have to use it, or else why to install it? So only install Torch first, and then once the Torch installation is completed, then go for Sentence Transformer. This is one of the important libraries that you will require for working with the Hugging Face Hub models, as well as the various embedding models. So these two libraries are very, very important after installing Torch. And then if you want, you can install Hugging Face Hub, and datasets, evaluate. So all these are libraries that if you want to train the model, and if you want to learn about these libraries, then you can install this. Or else Hugging Face Hub, datasets, and evaluate, it's not required. I would still suggest to install Hugging Face Hub if you are going to download various models, but datasets and evaluate you can avoid if it's not required for you. Once all these commands are done, you are ready to rock. Basically, you have got the entire suite of libraries that you can use for working on various models that is out there right now, including the GPT models, GPT-1, 2 models that is out there. You can actually work on it using these libraries. Yeah, you can work on it using these libraries, but whether you can work on the RPA, that is something that we are going to see in coming videos. So we will, in the next couple of videos, I will be starting to play with Torch. So let me show you a gist. Let me go into Python right now and open the IDLE, and I'm going to import Torch. So once I import Torch, it is going to take some time. This is one of the aspects that I want you to understand. If you are going to write a script that is involving the Torch import, then the script is going to take the same amount of time to import it every time you are going to run the script. So the script might be a little slower. That is one thing. And second thing is, once the Torch is up, then what you can do is you can start creating tensors. So I'm going to create a tensor T1, and the tensor name is T1, and the tensor that I'm going to create is 1, 2, 3, 4, and the data type I'm going to create is going to be float. data type is going to be torch float 32. This torch float 32 is the basic uh, data type that the tensors are required to be created. But if you don't give this data type, what will happen is, let me show you. So if I don't give this data type, then uh, the usual tensor is actually long. So let me show you that also. I'll be going into this in detail in the next videos, but this is just the starting point. So just to show you what is happening. So here this is class torch tensor, and this is also class torch tensor, no doubt. But if you ask for the type, so if you go here and if you ask for the D type, then you'll see this is torch int64. Okay, if you don't give the D type, then it will default to int64. And if I actually create one more tensor, and if I actually add a dot, that is a decimal point, I add a decimal point, and if I try to look at the type of it, what do you expect the type is going to be? By default, it becomes float 32. So by modifying these things, you can actually do a lot of stuff. Let us go back to the presentation. So let me recap. So in this brief discussion, what we have done is we have seen how to enable AI in Raspberry Pi. In fact, the moment you install Torch transformers and sentence transformers, you have got the Raspberry Pi to work with various other large language models and the neural networks like classification models and inference models and linear models. Yeah, the Raspberry Pi may not have the power to do all these things, that do the inference, do the classifications at high speed, but it can do. Okay, only thing is, as I explained to you in the middle of the video, ensure that your Raspberry Pi is properly cooled. If not, then your Raspberry Pi might get burnt. So the risk is all yours, so keep this in mind. I don't take any responsibility, but I have given you complete information on how to cool the Raspberry Pi, and also how to ensure that you can responsibly play with Raspberry Pi artificial intelligence models. Further to that, we have seen why we are installing the torch, and what we can expect from this installation. Next, we saw how to install it. We saw how to get the Raspberry Pi OS into the SD card, and then SD card to be mounted into the Raspberry Pi board, and then get SSH into the RPI. After we got into the SSH terminal, then we ran all this commands. I did not run this sudo apt install neovim, but it's already there imperative that you can run this command and it will install neovim. It will take maximum 35 to 40 minutes of your time, and you will have the Raspberry Pi enabled with AI capacity. With that said, I would like to leave this video with 4 words. That is going to be install Raspberry Pi with PyTorch library. See you guys. Have a great time.